Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Elisa Sklar, and I am the VP of Marketing at GIS Planning. Very delighted to have you all here with us today, and I appreciate you taking time out of your busy days. We are going to make sure today's webinar is very practical, and my goal is to give you as many takeaways that you can begin putting into practice right away at the end of today's webinar. So let's talk about an overview. Some of the things that I would like to talk about today is we're going to just do a very brief overview of how we can understand web traffic. We'll talk about the language that you use on your website and how that draws people into the website, the language you might use to describe it in promotion elsewhere, and how to make that compelling so people click through. We're going to talk about quality traffic. So really, I want to discuss connecting with your stakeholders and making them involved and ensuring that they are helping draw traffic your way. I'm going to talk about some strategies to build rapport with local journalists or regional journalists. We'll talk about free listings that you should be taking advantage of. And we're going to talk about the idea of open data as something that you can use to promote your website, especially where you have data tools on there, because of course that will be of interest to a wide variety of people, and you want to keep drawing them back to your website as well. So let's start about understanding this concept of web traffic, because I think that we have an idea of what it is, but we really want to see how, of course, we're measuring it. So first of all, you need to know your analytics, because if you are not regularly checking the analytics for your website, it's very hard for you to measure the impact of any strategies that you're currently using to drive traffic your way. So first of all, you want to know about traffic sources. Where is your traffic actually coming from? And I work directly with our clients here at GIS Planning. We have upwards of 400 clients around the world now, and I'm often surprised when I speak to economic developers who have not themselves visited Google Analytics, that don't necessarily know where the traffic to their website and their data tools is coming from. This is something you really need to know, because this is where you measure the impact of your strategies. You want to understand the difference between new visitors and returning visitors. So new visitors are people coming obviously for the first time to your website, versus returning visitors who are regularly coming back either because they are continuing to investigate a project in your area, because they are interested in your data tools and they know that it is a constant source of content and a way for them to research and analyze important questions they might have about your area. Maybe site selectors, you want to make sure you're on their radar screen so that they're regularly coming back, because you know that way your community is a compelling possible business location for them. So really important to understand that. Landing pages is an important concept as well. You want to know where in your website your traffic is landing. And a lot of people have this idea that they come into your homepage, that first page on your website. And sometimes that is true, often that is true, but that is not the only place they land on your website. And that means that they might be coming in, for example, on a blog post, maybe that has some great keywords, and they did a Google search and that's what turned up, that's what they clicked on, and that's where they land. Or maybe they're landing on a video that you have posted online, or maybe they're landing consistently on your data tools. We've noticed, for example, that our 6 intelligence components, which are standalone data tools that can be embedded on different website pages, represent up to 25% of the landing pages for traffic to our client website. So landing pages are really important. You also want to take a look at the average time that they're spending on your site. If they come onto your website and then they leave a second or two later, they obviously got there by mistake, or your website is taking too long to load, or something is going wrong because they got there by mistake. If they're spending a certain amount of time online, enough to read and certainly to visit other pages, that's what we're actually really looking for. So that kind of critical amount of time is important. Bounce rate versus exit rate, really important. Bounce rate is how many people on any of your individual website pages leave right away. Exit rate lets you know which specific pages are the pages that they're most likely to leave your website on. So when we look at your web pages, you want to make sure that you have other compelling links. Certainly you want a clear contact us link on every single page that you've got. You want links to your key data tools on every single page, in the header, in the footer, in the menu somewhere. You want to look where those exit pages are happening. And if it's happening on Contact Us, that's probably a good thing. That's where you want that, most likely that exit to happen. But if it's happening in other places, we want to think about how to lower that exit rate. And conversion rate, if you're going to be doing any campaigns online, if you are tying this to any sponsored posts, you want to see how that fits in converting over to your goals. Now, there are 3 different ways you can measure your analytics. You've got, of course, your Google Analytics, and I do have a separate website, a separate webinar where I can walk you through unpacking your analytics. So I'm not going to spend too much time on that here today, but of course you can reach out to me if you'd like to see the video for that webinar as well. Google Analytics gives you group data. It lets you look globally at the behavior of people, how they find your website, what countries they're from, what kinds of devices they're using, what pages they're likely to land on, what they do when you're on your website, what pages, other pages they visit, what pages they're likely to leave from. So that's kind of global data. Zoom Prospector Analytics is something that we've built into the back end of our data tools that gives you economic development analytics. So when people are on your website, what properties are they searching for? What communities are they searching for? What are the keywords they're most likely to be using? So for example, you might see that there's suddenly a lot of people looking for warehouses in your area. This speaks to your strategy as an economic development organization, because if you do not have the supply to match that need, that's something that maybe you want to think about. So that is the economic development portion of the analytics. And then the third part of that, of course, is your lead gen ID. And that is something that we have coded into the back end of all of our tools. And that lets you see what companies are on your website. It uses reverse IP lookup. So you'll know, for example, that GIS Planning is on your website, but you won't know that it's Elisa at GIS Planning. We try and avoid that creepiness factor, so there isn't any of that. So you'll know what office they're from, let's say the San Francisco office of GIS Planning. Someone had visited, this is the keyword or the referring site that brought them there. This is the searching they did on your data tools. They are looking for retail properties with 10,000 square feet, or they're looking for industrial. They did a demographic report around this particular address. They looked at this property report and that property report. So that really granular search data tied to the company that is researching locations, that is the game changer level of analytics. So we want to make sure that you are, of course, driving as many people as possible to your website and then using these analytics to measure for actionable intelligence, to proactively reach out to them and convert them into leads. So let's talk about the language that you might use when the time comes to be able to reach out to them. So first of all, let's look at, if you're trying to actually think about your target audience. So first of all, site selectors. I know you're trying to reach site selectors. So let's think about the language that is most likely to get them there. So, for example, we want to make sure that you are using descriptive language that talks to their needs. So they are going to be looking for something that says property locator. They'll be looking for something that says sites and buildings database, site finder, site selector tool, location analysis tool. And before I talk about the link location, I just want to suggest that maybe oftentimes we see GIS tool being used, and I actually want to caution you against using the descriptive language GIS tool, because unless you are trying to attract GIS people or very technical people, most people are scared away or intimidated, or they just ignore that kind of language. That is not marketing language that encourages people who are not GIS data folks to click on them. So that's what site selectors tend to be looking for. It is most likely to get them to click. And where are we going to put that? So that's really important. Once they're in your website, you want to make sure that you are using this concept of redundancy, which means you want to put those links and in as many possible places on your website that people are likely to look for them. So certainly the headers and footers, those are really critical, because headers and footers are on every single page of your website. There is no chance that someone will miss them or lose them. You want to make sure it's at the top of the home page. We often talk about the above the fold concept. Above the fold is kind of a funny term because it's legacy term from when we used to get newspapers delivered to our door. I personally still get a newspaper, but I know not a lot of people do. Increasingly, numbers of people aren't getting them. When you picked up your newspaper, anything that was above the folded newspaper page, that is the prime real estate. Now on a website, what that translates to is whatever loads up on your page without you having to scroll down or click anywhere else. That's very valuable website page real estate. So you want your most important links to appear at the top of that home page or in the headers of any of your website pages. If you happen to have a page on your website that is called a site selection page or site selectors page or investors page, that definitely is a place you want to put that as well. Perhaps you also have a page that says economic development. Maybe you're a city or a chamber of commerce or a county level, and economic development is one of the departments. You certainly want to make sure that it's linked there as well. So those are some of the places that they're going to be looking. Now, of course, you're also able to engage with your business community, and you want to make sure that you are getting them onto your website. So you want to use language that will draw them there. And once they get to any of your pages, you want to draw them in. So for example, with your data tools, if you want them to click on those tools, because maybe they're looking for other locations, or maybe they're looking for the market intelligence that they can get from those data tools, things like talent pool or labor force data. Maybe they want to research the other businesses that are competitors or suppliers or supply chain. So what are some of the things they're going to look for? Well, they may not be looking for a property. So if you just call your data tool a property locator, your business, your existing businesses are not going to click on that. And that's really a shame because there's very valuable data in those tools. However, if you call that a business and location analysis tool, or a workforce and business data tool, or a business data resource, now you have your existing local businesses more likely to click through on those tools. Now, that doesn't mean you can't also in other places call it a property locator. Remember, it's that concept of redundancy. We want to vary the language and then build them into multiple places on your website to encourage these really important stakeholders to connect to them. Now, your existing business community, certainly they can use this data for their own market intelligence. You need to let them know that data is there. You want to draw them back to your website. Often, existing businesses feel overlooked or ignored by their economic development organization, who they sometimes think maybe just trying to attract new businesses or create new jobs. But we know that our existing businesses are the lifeblood, the economic lifeblood of our communities. So we want to encourage them to come there. They are, after all, ambassadors to other potential investors. So make sure you're using language that is compelling to them. Now, where would you put the links to those data tools that would engage your business community? On your Chamber of Commerce page, on resources page, on economic development page, business and industry page. Maybe you have a city or county doing business page. Certainly, again, headers or footers or other places that you would want to put that as well. Now, there are other community stakeholders that are engaged in economic development for your region. So you want to make sure that they also have a reason to come to your website. And some of the descriptive language that is going to get them there and engage them once they arrive is if you call it something like location data analysis, or I really like this one, community data mapping tool, or community data resources, or community open data tool. Now that's the kind of language that might get other community stakeholders to take a look at what you've got on your page. Example would be something like a hospital administrator. They certainly want to know information about demographics around their hospital. They want to know the medical clinics, dentist clinics, pharmacies, for example, in the region around the hospital. They certainly are community stakeholders. This is an important economic node in your community, something like a large hospital. And you want to make sure that they understand that your website is serving their interests, because they, again, are ambassadors to your community for any potential investors. And where would we put those links? So any other pages on the website that is about this community, for example, or community data, city county website, and then think big here. Any community website that is tourism, public works, city, county, chamber of commerce, all of that should be there, and of course social media as well. So this is an example of how you might use different kinds of language to describe the same thing in order to think about the different target audiences that you're trying to draw back to your website. Okay, so let's talk about how to engage those community stakeholders. Let's drill down a little bit more. Now, first of all, we're starting from the idea that your community's economic well-being affects everyone in the community. And we want to show them how to help, how they can be ambassadors for your community. So for example, your school board administrators are community stakeholders. They want to have students in their seats. If you are creating jobs or opening a new company, they are going to bring families in there. That is going to impact the school board. It's going to impact the hospitals. It's going to impact your main street retailers. So all of those folks are community stakeholders, and they all need to know what your website is about, what your organization does, and what data resources you can offer them. So these are the steps that when I work with our clients, these are the things that I certainly suggest that they do, and I'll help them out with that. So the first thing I suggest you do is compile a list of your contacts in other government and administrative departments in your region, your entire region. And it may fall slightly outside of your service territory because, of course, business doesn't necessarily respect those arbitrary boundaries that we tend to draw for an economic development department. Get that list. So you want a list of names, job titles, the organization they're working for, and their email address. Then I suggest that you compile a list of journalists and media contacts in your area, from local to regional. And don't just think about print, think about radio, television, influential bloggers. Not the loose cannons, of course, but you want to make sure that anyone who is a voice for business in your area. And what I would like you to do with each of these two lists is I would like you to send out an email, ideally a personal email. You can draft a text and then just change it up from time to time. Now, to the contacts in government and administrative departments, you want to email them, and this is what you want to say. This is what we do, 1 or 2 sentences. This is our new website. It has tons of resources and data tools that would be of interest to you. And then you need to think about what your ask is. Your ask in that email is that they put a link on their website back to you. That is really, really important, and I'll come back to that in a moment. Now, when it comes to the journalists, you want to think again, a line or two, what is your mandate? Who are you? What do you do? I mean, let's be honest, most people don't really know what economic development means. Explain that to them. You want to, for the journalists, this is really important. There's a few messages that gets to them. You want to stimulate the area economy. You want to attract new investment. You want to create jobs. You want to support existing businesses. Those are stories that journalists and media understand. Now they know that's what economic development means. Now, if you've just launched a new website, if you've launched a new data tool, that is a story to a journalist, especially if you tell them how it's a story. It's a story because we are supporting existing businesses. It's a story because we're attracting new jobs, attracting new investors. All of those things are stories they can understand. And then you want to encourage them to write about it. And oftentimes we forget about radio and television. That's really important. Then this is the last part that's really critical. When they write these stories, or they write, produce the radio spot or the television piece, they're going to most likely, almost certainly, they're going to post that story somewhere online on their website or on social media. You want to make 100% sure that when they do that, there is a link to your website included in the text description that goes with that. Now with print, it's obvious, it's all text, that's pretty easy to do. There must be a hyperlink back to your website and ideally to your data tools in the print version. If it's television or radio, Google does not index the content of video and audio files. So there must be a text description that accompanies them for any radio station or any television station. And you want to make 100% sure when you follow up with them that they put a hyperlink back to your website in that text description. That will make a huge, huge difference. And I'll come back to that in a moment. The next thing you want to do, and bear with me here because this is going to sound a little nutty, you want to develop a list of all the colleges, universities, and technical colleges in the area that you service, as well as any departments in those schools that may have interest in accessing your data. So geography, business, urban planning, political science, whatever. And I know you're thinking, Elisa, that makes no sense at all. This is not my primary audience. It's not my secondary audience. It's probably not even your tertiary audience. But I'll tell you what I've noticed. When I look at our hundreds of clients and I look at their Google Analytics, a fair proportion of the traffic that they get comes from the universities and colleges in their area. And that is really important to you because good traffic, good quality traffic, it builds good quality traffic. What you want to do is encourage these librarians and these university departments to put a link to your website and your data tools, if you've got them, somewhere on their resource lists, on their department lists, somewhere in their online library catalogs. That's really, really critical because good traffic breeds good traffic. Not to mention, of course, that these students are going to graduate and move many of them into the business community, and it's helpful if they actually know that it's there. And then what I need you to do after you've reached out to each of those lists is you want to make sure you've accomplished two things in that email to them. One, that you let them know how the data is relevant to them, and two, that you encourage them to link back in the different ways that they are able to do that. Now, this is the thing about the links. Backlinks are a critical way to improve search engine optimization and drive high quality traffic to your website. If you just you can build the most beautiful website in the world. If you do not market that website, it's kind of like throwing a party but forgetting the invitations. Nobody's going to show up. And so the marketing that you need to do is the constant promotion of the website and the linking work that you're doing to let people know that the website's there. Otherwise, you're just shouting into the wind. And when you let people know it's there, you're also signaling to Google that this is really important. It's a credible site. So you want to encourage all of those stakeholders to link back to your website in different ways. To do that, these stakeholders need to understand why it's useful to them. For example, elected officials, they are going to love this if they know that it's there. First of all, they'll use it to prepare their speeches. They'll refer back to it in their presentations. They'll use your maps and your charts and your graphs in the different kinds of outreach that they're doing, whether it's a speech or a report. But this is valuable open data to the citizens in their area. So elected officials, if they know about it, and shockingly, with many of our clients, they do not know, the elected officials do not necessarily know that it's there. There is such valuable data there that they can research and analyze. Elected officials will draw from this data in different ways. And the journalists who report on the elected officials, they're going to use the data on their website. I used to work as a journalist, and I know that I was constantly researching a lot of the data points that are now freely available on these data tools. As an economic development organization, if you let the journalists know that it's there, aside from any stories they might write about you, if they continually go back to your website and do that research there and refer back to it, that is going to benefit you in very important ways. Your tourism, your healthcare, your school administrators, police and safety, public works, all of those folks can draw from the data for their own internal use. And also, again, providing access to this idea of open data creates goodwill across the whole community. Of course, we know the librarians in colleges, they're studying, teaching, researching about other things in their community, and it gives them resources that they don't have to hunt down on their own. And again, I know you're saying I want to attract investors. I'm not so worried about attracting librarians, but the more high quality traffic you do drive, the better your website will do in the search rankings. And it's really important because .gov and .edu sites in particular are Google Gold. When you have any site that is a .gov site, so a city site, for example, a state site, or a university site that ends in .edu, in particular, that signals to Google these are credible, important, and valuable sites. They are they show you're legitimate, and it is going to improve your showing in search rankings. So really, really important. Again, media, any media story that references anything about economic development should be referencing your site. You should chase them down each time they post a story, email the editors, email the online content managers, and make sure that they put the link to your website back in there, because it will be absolutely valuable in ensuring that people come to your website, the people who need to know. When site selectors and businesses making location decisions are doing their research for a community, they're often doing it online before they contact you. You do not even know that they are researching your community. And they are going to come across these media stories, they're going to come across all of that really good granular information online. We want to make sure that they know how to find you. It really will make a huge difference in the end. Social media. you've got this fantastic data on there, on your tools, on your website, all that information. You want to be regularly doing research, outreach on social media to drive traffic to your website. So first of all, you want to think about the places that count. Wikipedia. I know most of my clients are kind of shocked when I mention this, but Wikipedia is free and anyone can actually edit them. It's very, very easy to do. So what I highly suggest you do is research on Wikipedia what is already being said about your city or your county or your region. Chances are, if you do a search, you will see that Wikipedia turns up at the very top of the first page of almost any search that you do. How many of you have actually gone in and edited the wiki entry for your city or your county or your state to make sure that it includes elements about economic development, put those in bullet points is Wikipedia's friend, and make sure the link to your website and your data tools is included in there as well. It's a no-brainer, costs nothing, super easy to do. This is what it looks like. You go to Wikipedia, you create an account, it's free, and then you're going to edit the page. Now, if it is blatantly self-promotional, if you say something like, my town is the best town out there, the best place for business, well, you're probably going to get flagged. That's not what Wikipedia is about. It really, because anyone can edit it, it really needs to be factual. If you're putting the anchor companies, the target industries, the keywords that have to do with the value proposition for your area, and a link back to your data tools and your website, that is very unlikely to be flagged, and you can make sure that it's in there and it's being represented. Now, some other things about social media. You want to make sure that in the bio for your economic development organization that you make sure that your website is in there. Obviously, here's an example from Abbotsford, British Columbia. They're very media savvy and they spend a lot of time on Twitter. You'll see that their website link is in there as well. That's also going to show up at the top of any Google search. You go on LinkedIn. LinkedIn, you want to make sure that you've got your website on there, and I would encourage you to put your data tools as well. That includes not just in the bio description on all of these social tools, but on all of your posts that are drawing from your data. Put the link back to your website. That is going to consistently drive people back to your website. It really makes a big difference. If you're posting videos on YouTube or Vimeo, again, Google cannot index video content. Make sure that you have a text description that adds keywords and the URLs for your website and your data tools in each and every single video that you upload if you want to make sure that they get there. Then look at how your data tools let you share data. This is inexhaustible content for your social media tools. On our new Zoom Prospector tool, as you can see here, every single beautiful map, every property report, every report comes with a custom share link. If I wanted to show jobs by occupation in this particular area around that property, all I need to do is copy that code or share it directly from here. It will bring viewers back to that specific map that you have created. It's so beautiful and so easy to do. If you have our gorgeous infographics, click on the share link. You can actually share that in a variety of different ways on social, in email, and it will generate links as well. An example from one of our UK applications is that every single property report has a share link, again, that you can generate or put it directly on social media. It is so easy to be able to do that. This is from one of our intelligence components in Switzerland. This is a beautiful map that we've created, market price for commercial building land per square meter. Easy to share that. That's a beautiful visual that you can share online that is going to draw people back there. A few things that I just want to say about social before we end here today. Determine your resources for social. If you are a small team or you don't have a lot of time and you can only delegate time and energy resources to one area, choose LinkedIn. You want to fish where the fish are. People are not posting pictures of their lunch on LinkedIn. That is a place where investors are, where your existing business community is, and it is a great return on investment. Most of the leads that we've seen from our clients getting on social media has happened through LinkedIn. Make sure you have an organizational profile page. Make sure every key staff member has their own LinkedIn account and has linked back to the organization. And every post, I know I've said this before, should have a website URL that links back to key pages on your website. Look through your data tools for beautiful social content, maps, reports, analysis like the one I just showed you in South Carolina that shows jobs by occupation, labor force, talent pool. Do an analysis of business industries, and then set up a weekly or monthly calendar and just schedule the posts for the next few weeks so you don't have to think about it. And then use the analytics that we talked about at the beginning to determine what kind of traffic those posts got. What works best for your community? You'll be able to see that reflected over time. Now, all of the strategies that I've given you here are free. You do not need to spend anything more than time to actually set that up. So other things like sponsored posts, ads, certainly you can do that, but I really just wanted to focus on the free stuff that you should do first before you start throwing money at them. Now, I have another webinar that I did recently on 5 social media strategies for place marketing. In the slide deck that you will get in your email inbox tomorrow, you will see this on this slide. You can click on this link and it will take you over if you want to take a look at the video for how to use social effectively for place marketing. You are welcome to do that. Other examples that we've seen from some of our clients using the data tools, using beautiful visuals, making it part of LinkedIn, making it part of Twitter, Facebook. There's so many great ways and great examples to do that, to make sure that people on those social media channels are able to come back to your website. That is the key quality traffic that you're looking for. So I realize that we are up at the end of today's hour, so I'm going to encourage you, if there are any questions, you'll notice that there is a questions field on the right-hand side on the GoToWebinar control panel. Please feel free to put in any questions over there. I'm happy to answer them. I want to remind you that you can, of course, reach out anytime via email. That's asklar@gisplanning.com. Of course, you can follow us on Twitter, follow us on LinkedIn. We regularly produce different kinds of webinars like this that try and give you very practical information that you can use in different ways. I am happy if you would rather reach out to me personally, please feel free to do that, and I will be happy to answer any questions that you might have if that is something that would be of use to you. I think that takes us to the end of our half hour here, and I want to respect your time. I know how busy you all are. Thank you again very much, and you will hear from me shortly with a link back to this video. Please, if you have any ideas for future webinars, I'm always happy to hear them. Please reach out and let me know. Have a great afternoon. Thank you. Bye-bye.